G'day guys, welcome back, and if you're new here, welcome, and hit that subscribe button. And don't forget the bell so you never miss a new video. Let's begin. This week we'll take a look at a crazy phone call, a sound studio with historical significance, and a possible alien encounter. Hit the lights, sit back and relax as we go through some more r/paranormal stories. Enjoy. Our first story this week comes from Greasy Greg about a phone call. I won't spoil it for you, so let's just jump right on in. Long-time lurker, this happened years ago. I was 30 at the time and on my way to inspect an insurance claim in a big old Victorian house in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. As part of our protocol, we always call the homeowner when we are about a half hour away to make sure they remembered the appointment, will be ready for us, are home, etc. I had the home phone number and the cell phone number of our insured for this claim and called the home phone first. A very strange sounding voice answered. I could not tell if this person was a child or a very old woman. It had this raspy, high-pitched, odd-sounding voice. Do a Google or YouTube search for Sophie Masloff, former mayor of Pittsburgh, and you'll hear exactly the type of voice I'm referring to. There was a lot of static, and it was just weird. Anyways, this voice on the other end sounded very confused and could barely hear me. We went back and forth with the, "Hello? Can you hear me? Barely, can you hear me? Hello?" etc. for about 30 seconds trying to communicate, until I gave up. I thought we might have had a bad connection, so I hung up and called back. This time the call went into voicemail, which was your standard,
"You have reached 72433.
robot voicemail. I called the cell phone I had on file and received that voicemail as well. When I arrived, there was nobody home. I knocked on the door several times, rang the doorbell, stood around for a few minutes, called both phones again and received voicemail, and started walking back to the car. As I'm getting in my car, the homeowner shows up. The homeowner is a normal-speaking woman in her mid-30s. She apologises that she missed my calls and told me she was in a hair appointment. I told her that I had spoken to someone at her house on the landline, but we had a hard time understanding each other. She got a very concerned look on her face and tells me, "You must have called the wrong number because nobody else is home." So I look at my phone and recite back to her the number I called, which was, in fact, the correct number. So we go into her home and she looks at the caller ID on her landline. Sure enough, my call showed up on caller ID. There were 2 missed calls for the times when I called and received the voicemail, and there was 1 received call. At this point, the homeowner breaks down. She tells me, "I've been telling my husband for months now, ever since we moved in, that this place is haunted and he doesn't believe me." She's so upset she is shaking and had to leave the house. I explained to her that I don't know what happened, and all I know is I called and briefly spoke with someone. She thought maybe I called and got the voicemail and confused that for speaking with someone. But the voicemail clearly was not a strange voice saying, "Hello, can you hear me?" repeatedly. The caller ID also showed received calls versus missed calls. And the first call from my number was showing as a received call. I asked her if maybe someone had broken into her house and if we should call the police. She did not want to do that. So I checked all the doors and windows, and the house seemed secure. She also had a security system that she had to disarm when we entered, which had not gone off. The kids were at school, her husband was at work, and she claims nobody else would have any reason to go into her house during the day. She even called a few people to confirm nobody had been at the house. At this point, I'm pretty freaked out. Of course the damage for her insurance claim was in the creepy as hell basement where I had to go down by myself. Nothing else unusual happened, but when I left, the homeowner would still not go into the house by herself and told me she was going to her mother's for the rest of the day. She asked me repeatedly if her husband put me up to this, or if I really called the wrong number, or think the lines were crossed. I just wanted to calm her down and told her the lines were probably crossed, but I have no idea if that's even possible anymore. The bottom line is that I called this house and received a strange sounding person on the other end of the line when nobody was home. The caller ID verified that I called the house at that time and the call was received, but nobody was there. The house was secure with an active security system. Also, what made this strange was that the homeowner stated she had previous reason to believe the house was haunted. I never told her what the person on the other end of the phone sounded like. When I asked her why she thinks the house is haunted, she tells me that she has heard an old lady's voice talking in the house when nobody else was home. This still isn't the definitive ghost experience I have been looking for, as I'm sure there are a variety of possibilities as to what could have happened, but this is enough to keep my interest alive. Personally, I wouldn't want to be in the house after seeing all those missed calls. I understand not wanting to call the police though, as you don't want to seem crazy telling the cops about your haunted house. As for her claim, I would have written it out and not gone down that basement. I have to agree that it's not 100% a ghost story, as it can be explained, but it's still creepy as hell. This next one, from Music Gendo Boy, has a historical reference which I'll leave a link to in the description below. Be aware the subject matter might be a bit distressing to some viewers, but I do recommend checking it out as it is a rather interesting piece of history to go along with this story. A few years ago, I owned a recording studio in Rock Springs, Wyoming, in the basement of the old Woolworths building. My brother-in-law ran a snowboard shop up on the main floor, and the basement had a room that I used to record musicians. This whole basement couldn't be kept lit. I would buy light bulbs every week to replace the ones that had popped. One room would stay somewhat lit, so I set up shop there. There were many experiences that were unexplainable, but one stands out above the others. I had finished recording a band that evening, and they all packed up and left. I locked the door behind them and watched them drive away. Going back down to the studio in the basement, I went to start mixing the audio. About 20 minutes into the process, I stopped the music for a second to adjust some things, and heard running down the stairs to the basement, and then frantic running down the hallway toward my room. I had left the door open. I looked down the hallway to see what was going on. There was absolutely nothing there. I was quite freaked out, but I really needed to get the mixes done, so I went back to work and tried hard to concentrate on the music. About 5 minutes later, the exact same thing happened, except this time I ran to the hallway to catch the cause of the noise. So there I am, staring down this darkened hallway, hearing something frantically running towards me, and there's nothing there that I can see. I checked the entire basement, which scared the crap out of me because there was only one light still working in the rest of the basement. I found nothing and no one. I went back and checked the door upstairs. Locked. I went back to the studio and decided to put on some headphones to keep the creepiness out. Well, that didn't work at all because as I was mixing, I could feel a horribly angry presence behind me. In my mind, I could see exactly what the presence looked like. It was a very angry, bald Asian man. About 40-ish. I kept looking behind me. Nothing. Soon, the man felt like he was standing right over me, his fist clenched and up over his head like he was going to hit me. I turned around and saw a door down the hallway close slightly on its own. That was it. I was out. I packed up my studio the next week and never went back. Update. After studying a bit about the history of the area, come to find out there was what was dubbed the Chinese Massacre on that same street some 100 years ago, where a bunch of Chinese railway workers were killed by local folks for taking their jobs. I was shocked it took a week for Gendo to clear out. I would have been out of there right then. As I said before, you can check out the history of the Rock Springs Massacre in the link below. Our final story today comes to us from Freddy the Fish, and honestly, I'm not really sure what to make of it. Let's take a look, shall we? So I've had a handful of paranormal encounters. Now that I'm older, they have really stopped. This one happened when I was around 21, 22. I'm 30 now. I rented a room in a 2-story house at my friend's house in the 2nd story. I had a female boxer dog that would sleep with me in the room. I had one window that would face the neighbourhood street. One night, my dog jumped on my bed, blocking my view from my TV. I tried to move her with my feet, but she wouldn't budge. She kept a low growl, facing my window. Since she didn't want to move, I turned off my TV and went to sleep. She kept growling. I don't know what time it was later, but I woke up to a very, very bright light shooting through my blinds. I instantly became annoyed and got up to see which car had their lights on so bright it was coming into my bedroom. Mind you, never had I experienced this level of brightness. I got up and put my fingers through the blinds to open them up. Then after that, everything went blank. I remember opening my eyes and walking inside a type of room. The room was metallic, with no seams, just perfectly curved metal. In front of me was a perfect metallic bed. It was just a metal rectangle in grey colour. Behind me, I could sense there were things guiding me to this metal bed. We were communicating, but not through speaking. We were kind of talking through our minds. I could tell that they were just trying to guide me to the metallic bed in the middle of the room. I remember standing right in front of the metallic bed-like thing, and just like that, I was back in my bedroom. I remember standing in my room, but this time with my back facing my window. I stumbled around my room because I was really dizzy. I remember knocking down some furniture, but finally making it to my bed. The next morning I woke up. I actually didn't remember any of this. This all came to me later. I woke up feeling extremely sick in my stomach. I wanted to throw up. I stumbled down the stairs because I was also extremely hungry. I got the milk out of the fridge and was getting ready to pour it into the box of cereal. I stopped myself and went over to the sink, which faces the backyard. That was when I saw my dog running around the backyard. The dog who should have still been in my room. That was when it all hit me. All the memories came back. I ran up the stairs as fast as I could to look at the condition of my room, and furniture was thrown around. This was around winter time, so it got cold, and I would sleep with 3 blankets. All 3 blankets were formed into a perfect spiral-type design on my bed. I went to these spirals and destroyed them, since I couldn't believe what had happened. Something changed inside me after that day. I got dumber in a sense. I had speech problems on which I would stutter after every other word. Also, I couldn't comprehend what I was reading unless I read it slowly 3 to 4 times. I knew something happened that night. It wasn't until almost a year later I was in my room, just chilling in my bed. I was at the house alone since my roommate was working. Once again, a bright light shot through my room, but this time the house began to rumble. It literally felt like an earthquake had struck. Fear struck down my body since I already knew what that light was all about. This time, the light just went away. The rumbling only lasted for about 5 seconds, and everything was gone. After that day, I regained my reading and speaking levels. It all just went back to normal. Definitely one of the most weirdest moments in my life. Note: I don't do any kind of drugs other than over the counter, and I had not been drinking that night. Well, at least I had a happy ending of sorts, but it leaves us with so many questions. Was this an alien abduction? Could it have been a minor stroke? Why did it suddenly fix itself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Hey guys, Andy here. I hope you enjoyed this trio of terrors. Join me again next week when we dive back into the world of the strange and the creepy. In the meantime, you can check me out on the socials. If you really want to help me out, you can support me on Patreon. You can also come and chat with me anytime on the Opinionated Outcast Discord server. All links are in the description below. Until next time, friends, good night.